Welcome to the great conservative movement of America and of our time. A brush fire of freedom that's being lit all over this country. We, as an irate, tireless American populace, will overcome the few radical leftists that control the levers of power today. Joe Biden's failed economic policies has given us inflation like you can't believe, and the border is in disarray.
It's amazing how few of the people commenting on this have actually bothered to go see what's happening. Well, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona actually went to the border.
Biggs, where's Andy? Boy, oh boy, Andy. There's a guy. He's tough.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of my semi-regular podcast, What's the Biggs Idea? I'm glad you join us. I have two very special guests today, some very good friends of mine who serve in Congress with me from the 5th Congressional District of Virginia, Representative Bob Good. He's a member of the House Freedom Caucus, House Budget Committee, and House Education Workforce Committee member. When he was younger, he was a member of the wrestling team at Liberty University. Also joining us is from Montana. And what are you, the 1st or 2nd district of Montana, Matt?
Second.
He's number one.
Number one.
Second, number
I'm
two.
number
How
one,
about
but
that?
in the 2nd district.
I see. Number one in their hearts. Representative Matt Rosendale, who's also a member of the House Freedom Caucus. He's on the Veterans Affairs and House Committee on Natural Resources. He's been serving the people of Montana for more than 10 years in a variety of roles. And I don't believe that you were ever a wrestler in college.
Wrestled a couple of steers.
No. Okay. Well, I'm so grateful to these guys. We've in a short period of time, we've worked together a lot on a lot of issues that are important to the nation. And the one that was most recently, and this is just last week, and that is the so-called Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, the debt ceiling, which actually doesn't have a ceiling on our national debt anymore. And so I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this, both on the process, on the product, and what's going on next. So let's start with the younger man, Bob. Representative Good. Tell
Congressman Biggs,
thoughts.
thanks for having us with you today, and thanks for what you do and for your leadership and for the direction you provided to new members of Congress, Matt and I, over the last 2.5 years. As we all know, the most important responsibility the House has is the power of the purse, protecting the nation's ability to defend the country, to spend on what should be our priorities, to steward the taxpayer resources that are entrusted to us, and of course to protect our ability to borrow when necessary, and that should be rarely necessary. Obviously, we're far from that today. But the Failed Responsibility Act, as I like to call it, was a disaster. You guys were my brothers in arms back in the speaker battle back in January. I would submit that was primarily a result of two concerns that Republicans across the country had, that we have in times past, in recent years, when we had the House majority, we would pass major spending bills with primarily Democrat votes. We did that last week with the Failed Responsibility Act. And then Republicans did not use every weapon at their disposal to fight against the radical left agenda, the Biden agenda currently. And we certainly did not do that with the Failed Responsibility Act last week. And as I know you guys would agree, every Republican who voted for that bill voted to own, to affirm, to extend the Biden spending agenda, the Biden agenda more broadly for the remaining, hopefully just 1.5 years of his time in the White House. And it puts us on a much worse track fiscally. As you noted, Congressman Biggs, it is a unlimited increase in debt ceiling. It's essentially did what the Democrats wanted us to do from the very beginning, which is raise the debt ceiling with essentially no conditions. Spending is initially flat, if you will, but it can go as high as we want it to go with no limit with the debt ceiling.
Congressman Rosendale, is there even a ceiling on the amount of money that can be borrowed by the federal government today?
No, there isn't. And the debt ceiling is nothing more than the line of credit. And I can tell you, if any banker across this country saw this balance sheet at $32 trillion in debt and no changes being made whatsoever that are substantive to start changing the trajectory of that spending and to start paying that loan back, they would have a for sale sign up in front of the farm. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Thank goodness we've got some strong members of Congress like yourself that were able to mentor new members like myself and Representative Good from Virginia to recognize that it's not just the unlimited amount of spending, because they set this debt ceiling to a date certain beyond the presidential elections of 24, January of 2025, to make sure that we never had this discussion again. My goodness forbid, during an election year where all of the other conditions that we were trying to put in would have assured that we had this conversation again during the election year to give us another opportunity to reduce spending yet further. So there's two big problems. Not only do we have the unlimited amount on the debt ceiling, but we have removed the ability for the House of Representatives to have any type of leverage in negotiations as we go forward for the next 20 months when it comes to virtually any of the legislation that we put forward, including those appropriation bills. And we further continue to fund the very tyranny that's working against us. And it's not just the amount of taxation that has been increased that will be placed upon us, but the bureaucracy and the burden of government that it fuels.
Yeah, so you guys, I want to talk about the Limit Save Grow Act for a second, because it had a number of things in there that I thought were important that were completely thrown out here by the McCarthy-Biden plan of last week. Well, not the least of which was a rescission of many of the Green New Deal provisions. So now the Green New Deal basically is going to go forward unfettered. And so here's my question. What else was in there besides, what else was taken out of the Limit Save Grow Act besides the Green New Deal rescissions? I mean, that's to me is just as big a problem as basically putting an unlimited amount of debt, which we know will be minimum of $4 trillion over 20 months. So what else was missing after we got hold of the Fiscal Responsibility Act?
Do you want me to dive in? Or?
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
So
we know that the 87,000 IRS agents, that there was $80 billion in the Limit Save Grow Act that was going to come back to the Treasury to be able to use it for other purposes to help pay our debt, that funding is going back in to the tune of 98%. So instead of having 87,000 IRS agents looking at small businesses, ranches, farms, the local art studio, barbershop, for Pete's sakes, that are owned in a corporate entity, which most people do, they're going to be going after all those. Maybe we're only going to have 86,500 instead. We also know that the student loan redistribution program, as I call it, which was worth about $400 billion over the life, some people say as much as $600 or $700 billion, that was also taken back out of any of the negotiations. And then it's my understanding, I still don't have my head completely wrapped around where the money is going to go that had not been spent from the COVID relief. But here's what I will tell you. We're going to hear terms over the next 30 days about non-defense discretionary and mandatory and technical definitions about what's going to be spent and what levels are they going to be spent at. Andy, as you know, I'm a basic guy. I will bet you that the federal government spends more money next year than it did this year. And that's what counts to the people across the state of Montana.
Yeah, I would chime in.
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, there's two indisputable
Go ahead.
Two indisputable facts about the Limit Save Grow bill. If we set aside for a moment how bad it was and the debate on what was in it, what wasn't in it, whether there were any cuts at all, it's indisputable that it's an unlimited increase of the debt ceiling. So as much as we can come together in the uniparty and spend between now and January 25, there's no limit. And I believe Matt's prediction is most probable. We will be among those. We three will be among those who try to limit that as best we can. The other indisputable fact is that Democrats voted for it 4-1. So the Republicans who voted for it, who I would argue 2/3 of which, 2 out of 3 Republicans, as we know, voted for it, and those, many Republicans give their voting card to leadership when they get to Congress, but Republicans who voted for this, will say these are historic cuts. We really got great reforms here. Well, the Democrats suddenly get fiscal religion and vote overwhelmingly 4-1 in favor of this bill. To Matt's point, it doesn't include the rescission of the $87 billion or $80 billion for the IRS. It doesn't rescind the hundreds of billions of dollars for the student loan transfer scheme. The COVID money has been transferred into a commerce account, a slush fund. So most of the $30 billion that was in the unspent COVID funds got moved into a commerce account slush fund so it can be negotiated on how to spend that in the future instead of actually rescinding it, sending it back to the taxpayer, paying down the debt a little bit. In addition to the hundreds of billions of dollars, estimated even as much as 1.2 trillion of climate credits to the wealthiest corporations, the wealthiest of individuals, to transform our energy into unreliable, unaffordable wind and solar, and to further suppress American energy production. All of that was stricken out of the Limit, Save, Grow bill to pass the Failed Responsibility Act. In addition to, we don't have the 10-year spending caps. We don't have the $130 billion of cuts in year one, which was insufficient. It wasn't enough. It wasn't as meaningful as we'd like for it to have been. It also jettisoned or discarded the REINS Act, which, as we all know, would have required a congressional vote on every major rule of regulation coming out of the unelected agencies and bureaucrats, departments, that's of $100 million or more. That's what's considered major in Washington speak. It essentially eliminated the strong work requirements we had in Limit, Save, Grow. And it also discarded the HR 1 energy bill that we passed out of the House that would return us to American energy independence and reinstate or codify into law, I should say, the Trump energy policies. All of that discarded in the Failed Responsibility Act.
Yeah, so I want to provide a last little bit of context on it before we go to the next topic. But here's the way to think of it. The Biden administration had proposed a budget that would increase our national debt over 10 years from $31.4 trillion to more than $58 trillion. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, over 10 years, just without doing anything, if we kept spending the exact same amount we do today, would produce about a $52 trillion national debt in 10 years. So that'd be a $21 trillion increase. The Limit, Save, Grow Act would have left us with about $48 trillion. And this particular bill that was just passed, just think of it this way, in 20 months is going to bring another $4 trillion in. And so if you just take that out and run it, you're going to be looking pretty close to, I hate to tell you, about $56.5 trillion in national debt over 10 years. That is what happened last week. And then as Representative Rosendale and Representative Good said, it was passed with more Democrats voting for it than Republicans voting for it. That's astounding, but something that I think we could have predicted, and which is why so many of us were struggling with the potential of Kevin McCarthy becoming the Speaker of the House last January. So let's talk about let's shift gears here a second. So two things happened yesterday. One is that we were able to go down finally and see the document that the FBI has, where an individual provided information indicating that Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the Biden family received literally millions of dollars through their LLCs and their multiple bank accounts as a quid pro quo, and Joe Biden was expected to try to get Ukrainian Inspector General Shokin off the back of Burisma, which we know that was exactly what happened. And then at the same time, which was meant to distract, I suppose, the indictment of former President Donald Trump was released and announced. And I want to get you guys' instant reaction. What was your instant thought to that news yesterday? Bob, go first.
Well, it's you cannot overstate or exaggerate how harmful it is to the country to have a two-tier justice system, a weaponized federal law enforcement, a weaponized Department of Injustice that doesn't even hide the fact anymore that they're going after political opponents. And as we know, whether it was Bill Clinton, whether it was Barack Obama, whether it was Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and a presidential candidate, or whether it's President Trump, there's been questions about classified documents taken by these presidents, not counting Hillary Clinton, who was not president, but to the residents. There's negotiations on what to return or what's been declassified or not. Presidents, as we all know, have that authority to do that. But to go in the wee hours of the morning with 30 FBI agents to raid the president's home a year or so ago, now to indict the president, coming on the heels of the ridiculous charges in New York City from the weaponized DA, Alvin Bragg, how harmful to the country. This is police state tactics. This is Banana Republic style government, and terribly dangerous, terribly damaging to the country. Meanwhile, we're almost having no media or very few media reporting on the corrupt, compromised Biden crime family. We don't care about 170 suspicious activity reports in their banking records. We don't care about the dozens of shell companies and LLCs created to launder money from what is a mysterious Biden family business. We don't even know what the goods or services are that they produce or provide to make these millions of dollars. We've got some 80 or so visits to of Hunter Biden's business partners with the vice president during the 8 years of the Obama administration. We've got Hunter Biden flying with his dad on Air Force Two to China while he was vice president, and then Hunter gets millions of dollars. We don't have answers as to how the Biden family making millions of dollars off Ukraine business dealings and Chinese business dealings influence China policy and Ukraine policy. And now, to your point, we have this coming after you got the firsthand account of Tony Bobolinsky saying he met with Joe Biden. Joe Biden knew about the business dealings. And then you've got this FBI whistleblower document that you were able to see as a member of the Oversight Committee, apparently indicating that Hunter and Joe Biden each received $5 million in exchange for Joe Biden, who bragged on camera, by the way, that he withheld $1 billion of U.S. aid to Ukraine until they fired the prosecutor, for which, again, it is apparently indicated in these documents that Hunter and Joe received $5 million each. And then, that might cause some answers to the questions as to how someone who's lived his whole life on a government salary has a beachfront mansion in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, to go with his other mansion in Wilmington, Delaware, on a government salary.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And Matt, your response.
I work very hard to make sure that we uphold and defend the Constitution. That's the oath that we take. And what has made our country so strong and so resilient is that Constitution, and the fact that people understood it, they read it, and the elected officials did uphold and defend it. And the general public always had the confidence that everyone was going to be treated the same. And when we start seeing confidence lost in these institutions, whether it's our court system, whether it's the executive, whether it's the legislative branch, if they lose confidence in those institutions, that is when this whole thing starts coming unraveled. And what we are witnessing is that unraveling. We see people losing confidence in these institutions. We see them, the president of the United States, our former president, President Trump, being charged with crimes that not any reasonable prosecutor would bring forward. I'm not an attorney, but listening to legal arguments from all over the political spectrum that no one believes that these are enforceable charges whatsoever. And when Congress is able to finally draw the documents away from the entities and agencies that have tied them up for so long and have obstructed the rule of justice, and then have to rely upon these same agencies to actually prosecute or charge and prosecute people that have violated crimes, it's very problematic. So when we talk about the confidence of the people across our country and where they are, what their state of mind is, they're troubled by all this. They're demoralized by all of this, because what it does is it begins to force down and eliminate participation in our system. And that doesn't matter whether you're talking about going to the local school board and voicing your opinion or actually running for an office. And that is the breakdown of these institutions that is being caused by an out of control Department of Justice and a rogue administration.
Yeah, so I want to, I guess we're probably getting close to time. I want to just make a couple comments. You guys are fantastic, hardworking, do a great job in Congress. And when Representative Good says a two-tiered justice system, in my mind, if you have a two-tiered justice system, you don't have a system of justice.
Right.
You simply don't have justice. And I think back to Hillary Clinton. She uses BleachBit on a hard drive that has over 30,000 classified documents. Then they take a sledgehammer to it, and nothing happens. And at that time, FBI Director Comey says, "Hey, you know what? No prosecutor in their right mind would take a case like this." Well, that may be true, not in their right mind, but we've got a prosecutor now going after Trump for far less. Then we have Obama had documents all over the place. You have Joe Biden with documents all over the place in multiple locations, including his garage. So, I mean, it really does smell rotten. But then I just want to say, you're right. Nobody's been calling me from not too many from the left string media to say, "Hey, what did you see in the document?" And if you looked, I was looking on the plane last night coming home and the announcement of Trump's indictment came. So I said, well, I wonder if anybody picked up on the left, at CNN, MSNBC, and those types of places. Did they pick up anything with regard to the Joe Biden document, which is quite frankly a very damaging document to Joe Biden? Nothing. Even though media was covering that, there were many reporters outside there. So I will just tell you this: the Shokin firing was not because he was not prosecuting. It was in fact because he was prosecuting and investigating Burisma. Ukraine was considered to be one of the top most corrupt nations in the world. Shokin had come in on that, and he was investigating Burisma. Who was on the board of directors of Burisma? Hunter Biden. In the document itself, the individual says, "I felt coerced. I kept Hunter Biden on," and I'm going to quote him. He says, "Hunter Biden is stupid, but I kept him on because we needed access to his father." And he says that multiple times in the document itself. And then he says the deal was that Joe Biden was going to take care of the Shokin problem, who was investigating Burisma. If you believe anything other than that, you've been drinking Kool-Aid from the left stream media so long, because the reality is that was the deal. Shokin was investigating Burisma. Hunter was brought on because of his arrangement with his father. And then it gets on, and the individual says, "Look, We gave $5 million to Hunter and $5 million to Joe, but they're not going to be able to find it because, and this is multiple meetings that they were having. He says they're not going to be able to find it because we've hidden our traces through the business and the bank transactions, and that's what you see. And the FBI is supposed to give us additional documents next week. A bigger question I can't believe people on both sides of the aisle aren't asking is, why did the FBI sit on this and not investigate this fully? By the way, Mr. Raskin, our colleague, said, oh, yeah, they investigated it, said nothing here. Oh, boy, and so they threw it out. Not true. Immediately, Bill Barr, the AG at the time this began to come to light, said that's not true. We forwarded it on to the U.S. attorney in Delaware for further investigation. Nothing happened. I will just tell you that there's a lot going on in Washington, D.C., and not a lot of it is very, very good and very pretty at this time. I just want to, again, thank you guys. I appreciate your friendship, but more than that, I appreciate your patriotism, your love of this country, your willingness to get in there and fight the fight. And regardless of the crazy loonies that say incredible things that are stupid, that are lies, that attack us on a daily basis, the reality is truth will out. And God knows the truth, and it'll be revealed at some point. But I want to say, Bob, how do the people follow you on social media?
At Rep Bob Good. Real simple. At Rep Bob Good.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, how about you?
At Rep Rosendale. Rosendale. Rosendale.
Well, thanks you guys for joining me. Look, if you want to follow me, you can go to at Rep Andy Biggs AZ. And you can go to biggs.house.gov. If you want the audio version of this, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts for What's the Biggs Idea. I thank my friends. Thank all of you who are listening today, including the haters. We always welcome the haters to listen, as well as those who understand and want to know the truth. God bless this country. God bless my good friends, Matt